Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. Today we are reviewing the last episode of Fargo, episode 10, called Bisquick. And, I don't know what I should say, but I guess it was a little unexpected, in a bad way, maybe, according to Marco. And surprising at the end, was a little grim and dark, but it turned out strange. I don't know how to characterize it. And I'm trying to think, we saw most of the characters, at least the ones we cared about, and what happens to them. And
really?
Yeah, we didn't see, but I mean, does it matter? We didn't see Dorothy's father-in-law. We didn't see Indira's ex-husband. We did see Gator, but not at the very, very end. So anyway, you want to start, Marco? Because Marco is a little unhappy.
Yeah. This finale was terrible. It was exactly what I expected, which was for them to suck tremendously. You know, it's one thing to make a bad finale, which, you know, they do every time because they suck at finales in particular. But also, it's another thing to build up for an entire episode people's expectations and make them excited for an episode, and then to just completely be a huge disappointment, which is exactly what they did with this episode. You know, I don't know how any logical person who, watched last episode could watch this episode and say, yeah, this was really good. Because, it's one thing to say, oh, I didn't expect that to happen, I didn't expect that to happen, but it's another thing to just suck. And to just do what this did, which was basically a cop-out, a pretentious cop-out, because these people, they're so far up their own asses that they're like, oh, we can build up for an entire episode, this epic finale that will happen, and then the next episode will just completely not do it. And we'll just let the audience down. And so that's what they did. This episode's a letdown. It's a piece of shit. The show fucking sucks. I'm really embarrassed to have said that it was a good show, because, this is just not acceptable right here. I'm getting so sick and fucking tired of this shit. Modern television, where they make these promises, oh, this show's gonna be about Loki, and then the show's about a woman. And then, this Better Call Saul is about Jimmy. And then, it's not about Jimmy, it's all about Kim. And, now you have Fargo, and it's this finale is going to be all about this big battle at the ranch, and all the components are going to come into play. Oh, no, we're just going to skip through all that and disappoint everyone and do a big piece of shit finale that ends with, a 20-minute cop-out of, we don't really have anything left to do, so let's just do this 25-minute long sequence where nothing really happens. And, that's what this finale is. It's just it's a fucking shit. It's they don't even have a fucking excuse of the pandemic for this finale either. They don't have that excuse like they did with season 4, with that shitty-ass fucking finale where nothing happened, it just fucking sucked. They had an excuse with that finale, oh no, there's a pandemic, and so we can't really make a good show. And now, what's their excuse? What's their fucking excuse for season 5's finale?
Okay, Marco.
What's their excuse?
Don't yell, because you don't need to do that.
What's their fucking excuse?
I don't know. I can't answer for them.
Why not? You're the one who thought it was fucking good.
I just don't need to see a big shootout, although they prepared.
What a fucking wimp! That's your fucking excuse after they build it up for an entire episode?
Why did they do that? You know, we talked about this too, how in previous seasons they'll have these big shootouts, but there really is no big buildup. They just kind of all like get together and all the shooting starts. And this time they really like set up this whole thing. They showed the militia people like lined up against the fences. They had the FBI and whoever else was with them, ATF, I don't know, because they were investigating their arms purchases, etc. Although we really never heard much about that, but they would be the ones investigating that. We saw them all lined up, and then you see all these. They even in the beginning of this episode, they showed the weaponry that the militia had. I think they had a rocket launcher, and then they had their tank, and anyway. So I don't understand why they did all that setup, because there was, when Dorothy, spoiler, shot Roy, right after that there was a ton of shooting. And then it seemed to, Roy ran away, got away, well, temporarily, and when he left, it seemed to either, and I can't imagine we couldn't hear it if it was happening. So it seemed to stop. And then he went and they went in and hid in the dugout for a while, and so we didn't hear any, there was no more shooting. We never saw anything. In fact, there was just as much, quote, stabbing as there was shooting, which was unexpected and weird. So I don't know what Marco, I don't know if he wants me to say anything. He's not very happy, and I was just like stunned, because they did really set this up like it was going to be this big. And I'm like, did they decide, well, why do you really need to see that? Why do we need to see that? Well, if you're not going to do it, why set it up to look like that? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if you were trying to just get more people to watch the last episode. I don't think that was necessary either. I think people who've been watching the show were interested in seeing it. They're not watching it just to see some shootout, but if you're going to set it up to do that, why do that? And like, once he was arrested, the shooting stopped, but it was stopped before that. So that was strange. You know, she also, another thing, she shot him at, it was pretty close range with a rifle. And I don't know if it's because she didn't shoot right at him in the middle. It was more to the side. I don't know, but I mean, it seems like with that close of range of a powerful weapon like that he wouldn't been able to drag himself, and he didn't even have to drag. He was kind of partially running to the dugout. I don't know how he could have made it that far, and he wasn't even struggling that much when he was in the dugout. Anyway, so we have, then he did something else. I talked about the stabbing. Like I said, there was more stabbing, or it's almost as much as the shooting, where there was stabbing. And I'm not talking about all these other people. I'm talking about Roy. He had a knife, pretty long knife, and he slashed his father-in-law's throat on the porch. And then at the aftermath of that, his daughter, Roy's wife and the man's daughter, saw what had happened. And then he started chasing her. He would have killed her if he would have caught her with the knife. He kind of went crazy. And then, so I'll let you carry on from there if you're going to just review the episode, not rant. Marco is very unhappy, and because he doesn't appreciate being set up for something that doesn't really happen, and it didn't. It never did, and if it did, they didn't show any any evidence of it, really, at all. There's no bodies on the ground. There's nothing. They on either side. Only body was a certain person. I don't know if you want me to say it, Marco. And that was not from shooting. And that was in the dugout. So even Gator, who was wandering around with no eyesight, there's a lot of spaces between the buildings and places on this ranch. I mean, he could have been shot by anybody because it was kind of foggy, and he didn't get shot either. They caught him, and then he gave up his father's location. And then he sat on the bed of a truck, the gate, open gate, and was sat there. They rebandaged his eyes. But he didn't even get shot either. So, want to say something now, Marco?
Oh, I'm allowed to talk now?
Well, let's not get crabby.
Well, I don't know where to begin because I don't appreciate it. So, I don't know where we even start.
Well, you could...
I guess we should start at other shows that aren't pieces of shit like this show is. I guess we can start off with talking about shows that would set things up and then not let down on them, not disappoint them. I guess we should start there. So, first off, you have The Walking Dead. Now, The Walking Dead Season 4, they really knew how to do good action. They were really good. People complain about that show because it went on for quite a while. But they really knew how to do action. And in that show, in Season 4, they had this big storyline where you had the governor, and he was the villain, but that he had two kind of solo episodes where he almost had like a redemption arc, and he became a anti-hero of sorts, but then he becomes a bad guy again, and they're at the prison, and he takes one of them hostage, and he chops their head off in front of them, and that initiates war. And with that, they actually set up all the same stuff that Fargo, or as I'm going to call it now, Fargo. It's set up all these things, and they followed through. They had a tank, and they used that tank in The Walking Dead. There was tank action because they set it up that way. They didn't set it up and then not follow through on their promise. And they had all these elements, and they all came together, and it was really, really good. And that episode is one of the best episodes of TV ever. And it was hugely action-packed, tons of violence, tons of just payoffs, and it all made sense. It didn't just feel like fan service or anything. It all made sense, and even things that were bad happened because they all split up, and so for the rest of the Season 4, they couldn't find each other, and they were lost, and people were wounded, and it was really, really realistic. And then you think about Hell on Wheels, Season 4, where you had that Confederate soldier, fellow soldier of the main characters who he was friends with him back in that time, and he comes back to town, and he's a bad guy, and then all of a sudden he tries to take over the town, and he becomes the new sheriff, and the main guy has to go up against him and battle him, and they do this whole episode where they set up, and you have all these people who are going to help fight this bad guy and all of his new sheriff's team, and then they do, and then guess what they do? They pay it off. They have a fight It's a climactic fight with trains where they have a minigun on the train and they use the minigun to just massacre these fucking bad guys. And it is amazing. It's one of the best episodes of TV ever. And they followed through on their promise. And then you have Hannibal. Hannibal Season 2. At the first episode, the first thing you see is that Hannibal is in his house with all these characters, and everyone is in a compromised position because and then he fights with Jackie Poo, and everyone is going to get fucked up, and they followed through on that promise by in the finale. He basically almost kills everyone on the whole show. It's like one of the most climactic, amazing episodes in TV history. Because they followed through on their promise. And then what else? There's tons of other examples of shows that are actually good, where they promise you something and they follow through. This show is so pretentious and full of itself that they just said, no, we're not going to do that because we know that people in our fanboy fan base are going to say that it's really good and it's really genius because, what we expected to happen didn't happen, and so therefore it's good. If you expect to go to McDonald's and get some food and then you get in a car crash on the way there and die, I guess that all these Fargo fanboys would say that that's a good thing because, it's not what you expected to happen. But it's what was supposed to happen because it's such genius writing. And so, with this show, I don't know. I think that Safi should continue because she looks like she's sitting in an elementary school taking a timeout. And so maybe she needs to say something of note if she can. I don't know. She thought it was a good episode, so, she doesn't really have much to say that's worthwhile.
Well, Marco needs to stop being so opinionated, although this is a review show.
Yeah, that's what a review is. It's my opinion.
He doesn't, yeah, so it's your opinion, but I also have my opinion.
And your opinion sucks.
Okay, well, I don't know why they did that. I can't read their minds. The only thing I could think is that they think people are violence weary. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. I just don't know why set it up that way if it's not going to be that way. And I don't know how they would do it any differently. If they're not going to do that, what would they have done? I don't know. You're dealing with somebody, Roy, who is completely crazy. He's not just an abuser or a lawbreaker. He's nuts. And, you're just going to get that. Well, see, he did have a gun. He had a pistol, and when Dot shot him, she kicked it out of the way, so he couldn't grab it. So he always carries a knife with him. And so that was the knife that he was using to stab everybody. Okay, well, I'm just going to say the next thing that happened.
No, you're not going to review it?
What do you want me to say? I don't know.
Are you going to review it?
I can't read their minds. I don't know why they did it, except they think people are violence weary. But why did they set it up to be that way? I mean, they really set it up.
Safi.
And when they caught him, did all the militia people just stop fighting and drive home? Did they arrest them all? I mean, we don't see any of this aftermath, but very little of it. We see them, they surround Roy. He killed Whit, who was going after him, and which I don't understand why he'd do that by himself. I didn't think that was good.
No.
And why would they? I mean, he knew he was dangerous.
Yeah.
And
that was pretty bad.
He must have found out that he killed. Remember that he pulled into the gas station, and he saw the lawyer there. And he told him they had Dorothy, and then that's when Danish, and that's when he went to the ranch. Danish did all by himself, and then Roy shot him in cold blood.
Remember
in the chest.
Remember that Whit pulled up to the ranch's gate, and they threatened him, and he knew, because he was smart at that time, he knew that he shouldn't go in there by himself to face off with Roy. But all of a sudden in this episode, because these writers fucking suck, he goes into the tunnel all by himself, and it's just so predictable and stupid. It's not even funny. So let's start off with the first thing that happened, because I'm gonna trash on every single thing that happened in this whole episode.
Oh boy! Because
I don't appreciate it. So we're gonna go through like a laundry list of what happened. You know, it's kind of going to be a little painstaking, but it's kind of what I want to do, so I don't really care. So the first thing that happens, if you can even call something that happens in this episode, because nothing really happens in this episode except, you know, the show writers just say fuck you, and I say fuck you too. Fucking shitty ass hack writers can't write. Full of yourselves, fucking philosophy major fucks. So maybe you should stop studying, medieval philosophy books, and start studying books on how to write, because you don't really know how to write, apparently. So first off, Gator. Notice what I said there. I said Gator. You know, because this character's gay as fuck, because he just sucks. He doesn't contribute anything at all. This character, you know, he had this great build-up last episode where, you know, he accidentally killed that old lady, so he got his eyes taken out by Munch, and it's like, and then he gets returned to his father, and they have the great moment where he's not going to be supported by his father anymore, and so he has to, you know, he's basically abandoned all by himself. Even though he's an abuse victim, and then all of a sudden, in this episode, you're like, you know, oh, what's going to happen here? You know, they set up all these pieces on this board game here, so that all these pieces can collide with each other, and it's going to be really epic and action-packed, and stuff is going to actually happen. And then instead of that, Gator walks into the dugout, and then he goes into a tunnel system and escapes out in the middle of nowhere near the highway, and he gives up his father. Now, this is fucking stupid.
And you don't see any of that happening.
No, you don't get to see that, because the writers, they couldn't handle that. They didn't want to, you know, actually use the actor that they got. They spent tons of money for. You know, what a waste of this actor. Like, what a waste of his time that they took this actor and they basically just completely didn't use his talents at all. You know, what a waste of time. And so, like, he doesn't do anything, you know, it's just a big failure. It's just a big miserable failure and flop. And he just fucking sits around the whole episode next to the ambulance, and, you know, Dorothy promises she'll bring him cookies. Like, that's what fucking happens with this fucking character in this episode. So, like, basically, that just sucked. And then, what else happens? Because, like, you know, it could have been really cool, like, oh, maybe Gator, he actually enters the fight, and there's really intense moments where you think he's going to get shot, and he just so happens to be able to dodge them, and just so happens to be able to maneuver the battlefield, and then maybe he gets to kill someone to save a character. Like, oh no, we can't do that, because that would be too satisfying. That would be too good. We have to do what the audience wouldn't expect us to do, which is make a piece of shit.
Okay, Marco. Well, I mean, it is pretty unbelievable. He's blind, and there's all these people with guns on both sides.
And we don't get to see any sort of thing where it's like he just makes his way into the dugout, and he escapes in like 2 seconds, and it's like, wow, that was such a great payoff to him being blinded and being abandoned in the middle of the battlefield when there's a civil war that's about to happen on this ranch. Like, oh, wow, that's such great writing that you just did that shit. Wow. I'm so impressed with your inability to tell good stories and execute payoffs in a show. Wow. I'm so satisfied as an audience member because I'm not satisfied. You know how that works, Safi? You know, like, I'm not satisfied, so I'm satisfied. What do you think of that?
Whatever. Okay, so
what's the next shitty thing that happens?
Well, he goes to, Roy goes to the porch.
Oh yeah.
And the father-in-law says all this crap about that woman is still alive, talking about Dorothy.
He just talks shit to him as usual.
Yeah.
He's basically like a flat character who doesn't contribute anything to the show.
No.
And so then what happens is Roy just kills him for no reason. You know, he just decides, might as well. You know, I'm crazy evil guy, and so I'm just going to randomly kill people because, you know, that's how evil works. You know, you're evil, and so you just randomly kill people. You know, like fucking Detective Hoffman in the Saw series. Like, this show now resembles the Saw series and Saw 8. You know, with Detective Hoffman going around and just stabbing everyone in the throat. Like, that's what this is like, basically. Just randomly bullshit happens like that, and then his wife sees it, and he goes after her because he never loved her anyway. I mean, It's kind of hard to love her, honestly, because she's such a biatch, and she's an abuser, protector, and, you know.
Well, I think she's been abused by her father.
She's an enabler. Well, who cares? Like, why didn't she go to that cult and do a puppet show and forget about it, like Dorothy did? So, anyways, in
the middle of her running from him, Dorothy steps in front of Roy.
Yeah, Dorothy immediately shows up and immediately has a face-off with Roy, because nothing is better than just having the main character and the villain face off within 5 minutes of the finale, so that, you know, it can't be paid off later and it can't be more satisfying and good. No, she just shows up against him right away, and she shoots him in the belly, and he's on the ground, and then before she gets to shoot him again, of course, they do the convenient thing where the police show up, and then all of a sudden, they do probably one of the worst sequences in TV or movie history, which is they basically start treating the show like it's like a YouTube vlog or something that was made by an idiot, because like they just start cutting and making it to where it's almost like a montage of pictures, because they don't want to show you any actual action or anything interesting that happens. So you see Roy get off the ground, and then you see a picture of Dorothy, and then you see a picture of this and a picture of that, and it's just really unsatisfying. There's nothing that really happens. And then all of a sudden, Roy is down under in the dugout, and Whit just splits off from the group because, you know, the smartest thing to do as a highway patrolman is to split off from the group and do your own thing. Because, you know, that always works in movies and shows. And so then he goes into the dugout, and predictably he gets to have a little standoff with Roy. And you're thinking, this is only 7 minutes into the finale.
It happens real quick.
Why are we doing all this stuff and pretending like stuff happened last episode when basically nothing happened last episode except for setup? Why are we pretending like there was already all this action that happened, and that this is like the latter half of the episode? Like, because we wanted to do the most predictably stupid, cliche, dumb sequence ever. I mean, you have this belief that, like, you're subverting expectations, and it's like, yeah, you're subverting expectations because people in the audience think that you're that you're not stupid enough to do what you did in this scene, where you have, like, the cliche thing where there's a character and they're pointing a gun at another character, and then they're just easily able to overcome them because they are a little bit faster, and so, like, they have this stupid little standoff where Roy refuses to put the knife down, and instead of being a smart person like this character was supposed to be, he just stands there, and then Roy attacks and kills him, And it's like, oh no, the writers they suck. They just suck at everything. They just can't do anything right. They just decided to pull everything out that could have been good and give us trash. And so Wit is dead, and Safi cried, and she had a panic attack, and oh no, she thought it was good. She thought it was good that happened.
No, I didn't think it was good. It's funny because who got killed in the episode?
Him.
The father-in-law and him, right?
Yeah, that's it.
There was nobody else. Like, they didn't show anything. That's why I said they started when she shot Roy. He fell to the ground a little, kind of, and then she kicked his gun away because he had a pistol, and then they started shooting. And then that's when Wit came up, and she was going to participate, and then they told her, because she had that gun, to stand down, and she says, holds up her gun and says, I'm the hostage. I'm the hostage. And so they left her alone, but then everybody started shooting, and they had to get down, and that's when Wit left to go after Roy by himself, which was odd after everything that had happened in previous episodes and his encounters with them, and that he would go after them by himself with no backup. And I don't know if he was underestimating him, which I don't know why he would do that. He's evil and weird and crazy, and or not. I don't know, because he did, on the way there to the dugout, he saw blood on the snow from, because Roy had a chest wound. And but there's no, like I said, there's no more. You won't hear a sound. No more shooting. There was just that little bit on the porch, and then you never hear it again. And I think because it's like an open area with scattered buildings, if there had been any shooting at all, you could hear it for miles.
The fog never comes into play.
No.
There wasn't any creative use of the fog. It was just
not like there was last episode.
It was just there to be an aesthetic, so that the people who make the show can be artsy fartsy and not actually write a good show. So what happened next?
So what
in
happens
the shit
next
show?
is
In the shit show.
Wit's dead, and Roy goes through the dugout. It goes like under the ranch, and it comes up to this. You have a little ladder that goes up to the top, and there's this wooden circle thing, and we had already seen Gator go through there.
He escapes.
And climb out. And he escaped. We never saw anything that happened with that. I mean, he could have been shot any second from anybody because it was foggy. But we don't.
Yeah, we're not going to capitalize on that because that would be too intense and suspenseful and entertaining. We have to do what's not entertaining, which is to piss people off.
So Roy goes up to the same thing, opens the little door, and climbs out, and he stands there, and then all of a sudden the FBI is there, and they surround him, and they bring him to the ground, and the FBI, the two agents that they make them look terrible.
Yeah, those characters suck.
Really made me mad.
They never had any actual character.
So disrespectful. I can't believe they would do that. But that's Fargo.
Oh, really?
Fargo.
Oh, what kind of shit is that, Safi? What are you saying? That's Fargo.
The father.
That's Fargo.
Guys,
what are you saying?
It's just
what does that mean?
Goofy and strange.
Goofy and strange. It's goofy and strange to have badly written characters. Is that a serious excuse?
I don't know, Marco. I am not in charge of the show.
Why not?
I have my own things to do.
Like what?
The FBI agent says, "Oh, your son gave you up." Which I thought was interesting.
That was great. That was great storytelling right there.
No,
show not tell. Yeah. How about tell not show?
That's what the video was for.
Yeah.
This isn't a book. This isn't. I mean, like I said, I read books by listening to them all the time, and then I read books too by physically reading them. And that, in a book, that's what you do, because you don't have video. You have to describe everything. But in a video, you can show. That's what it's for. And, I mean, we missed that whole thing because they didn't show it on purpose. The thing where Gator gave his father up and they got him, and he didn't get shot by anybody, either side. And so anyway, they capture him and they take his knife away, and that's it. You don't see him anymore until the end. And
so Dorothy talks with him, and for some reason he's going to go to prison.
And it talks to Gator.
You know, and the thing that you're wondering is, this guy is an abuse victim. Why are they not treating him like an abuse victim right here?
I told Marco that plenty of
because
abuse
Dorothy
victims have gone to prison.
Dorothy is a quote-unquote abuse victim, but she did a lot of things that should have sent her away too. Like causing that guy with cancer to be kidnapped and murdered because she thought he was a meanie and she thought that he was rude to her. You know, that whole Minnesota nice, and she didn't talk to the FBI agents who were standing right there and could have easily resolved the situation.
Yeah.
Oh, instead of that, she just causes an innocent man to be kidnapped, and we're supposed to root for this character, by the way, and. So Gator,
they killed him too.
Gator goes to prison for who knows what. I mean, what did they even send him to prison for?
Well, I just told Marco it's stuff that we don't know about.
Oh, stuff that we don't know about. Isn't that nice? Isn't that great storytelling? Stuff that we don't know about because these fucking incompetent writers can't fucking show it on fucking screen.
Yeah.
How do they know that he killed the old woman? There's no witnesses. There's no proof for that. How do they know about that? You know what's going to happen, though, in the trial? Is that if he's talking about everything and giving everyone up, then what else is he going to talk about? He's going to talk about how Munch isn't really dead and how one of those people who tried to kidnap and kill Dorothy is still alive. And then the authorities are going to go searching for that guy. Oh, but that doesn't happen in this show because we wanted to do something different, where certain characters don't get held accountable for their actions, and then an abuse victim like Gator has to go to prison for the rest of his life. Isn't that nice?
But Marco brought it up, though, that he has knowledge of all this stuff that happened on the ranch, and he could easily give them time, and he could do a plea deal.
Yeah.
And not have to face any prison. Plus, he's blind. I don't know how that would work. Anyway.
Plus, he's blind.
Well, I don't know how you'd be in prison and be blind.
Whoa!
I
don't know.
I thought about that right away. So that's another thing.
I don't know.
I mean, you hear the stuff about plea deals.
We don't get to see that, though.
All the time.
There's nothing about getting to see Gator or anything with that. It's just, let's skip ahead so we can do what we want to do and not tell the story that we promised that we would tell you.
Yeah, and they could have easily had something at the end where they have the court scene with Gator or something. They could have done that. That could have been part of it. You know. Yeah,
because he knows that Munch is still alive. They did the whole cover-up to pretend like Munch is dead. You know, he had the knowledge. He was a witness that he killed the old woman. Or wait, no, he killed the old woman.
The Munch killed his partner.
But like
at the gas station.
I'm getting everything's confusing because there's so much to talk about. But he has all this knowledge, and like, oh, none of that matters. Knowledge doesn't matter in this show. It just matters that we subvert expectations and do what you don't expect us to do. You know, I would even say,
nothing, I guess.
And I know that this is going to be kind of mean, but I'm going to say that the American Horror Story cult finale was better than this. Because at least in that finale, they did do a proper build-up where Kai Anderson, the whole episode, it's a build-up to him facing off with the main character. And he doesn't face off with her until almost the end of the show. And so that was actually better done than this. So that shows you how bad the show is. That it was somehow worse than American Horror Story Cult. which you guys know is just like the bottom of the barrel, and which is the bottom of the barrel. You know, that show, right? Would you agree?
That was bad.
I mean, you got to admit, like, that was a lot better done the way that the hero faced off against the villain. And the payoffs were paid off instead of just pretending like we're subverting expectations by doing shit. So what else happened in this shit episode?
Okay, well...
Let's talk about Indira. Indira doesn't do anything. So Indira was the biggest waste of time in screen history. Her character meant nothing to the show. The whole plot about her having a quote-unquote useless husband, that was a waste of time too. Her character contributes nothing to the finale. You know, it's one thing being a red herring, and it's another thing being an Indira.
Well, they show a year later, and they have her and Dorothy and Dorothy's daughter visit the grave, Whit's grave. And Indira tells him that he had 6 sisters, and that she took his cat. He had a cat. He wasn't married. And then...
Safi, you saw the cat in a previous episode, right?
No.
Didn't we see that?
I don't remember any cat.
I thought we did.
I don't remember any cat. Sorry.
Maybe you just don't want to remember what happened.
Well, I just don't remember any cat. I'm sorry.
What do you remember?
Nothing much, I guess. Anyway, so then the next thing that happens, where we see Indira, is she accompanies Dorothy to Illinois.
You mean Lorraine?
Lorraine, I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's a different character.
To
just so you know.
To a federal prison in Illinois, and this is where Roy is, and she's sitting at the table, not Indira, but the mother-in-law sitting at the table, and here comes Roy, and he sits across from her, and they have many words, and she
basically
she threatens them.
She basically does a girl boss on him, which, you know, she does the whole season where,
right.
You know, she sits down with the male character, and then she says, I did all this stuff to fuck up your life forever, and you're severely fucked. And then the guy just sits there with a befuddled look on his face. So that's what she does to him. She says that she settled all these prisoners' debts so that they're going to fuck with you in prison, they're going to rape you, they're going to beat you up, and there's nothing you can do about it because I settled all these prisoners' debts, basically, just so that they would fuck you up. And
and then they pan over to some prisoners.
This is a really problematic scene for me because Lorraine... just because she realized that Dorothy was an abuse victim doesn't mean that doesn't make her a villain anymore. Like, just because she's doing this against Roy, that doesn't make her any better of a character. And it's really strange how in the Fargo show history that, like, whenever you have a character like this, like Lorraine, they always get their comeuppance. Which Roy gets a comeuppance himself, but Lorraine, she doesn't get any comeuppance at all.
Well, she loses her lawyer.
She's just a girl boss forever, and she can do everything because she's such a strong whammon, and Roy is stuck in prison forever, being tortured to death. So I think that's really problematic that, like, these writers, they came up with this character who, you know, she's a good character, even though she was very annoying. She was a villain, though. She was a villainous character. And for them to just let her off the hook, it's really problematic that, like, they have this villainous female character, and she's not held to the same standards as the male characters because, I don't know. The writers are fucking retarded. Because she's evil. Safi. I mean, like, just because she does, like, 1 or 2 good things, quote-unquote, that doesn't mean she's not evil. So I really thought that was bad, too. What do you have to say, Safi? Do you have anything to say about that? Did you like
Well,
that? Did you
she
scream?
said something about.
Did you tell her to slay the
She said-
patriarchy?
I was just surprised that she even. But I guess I'm not surprised.
Oh.
Because she does the thing. She did this before, and she talked about people's debts, and she spouted out when she was talking to Indira, because she said she'd looked her up and found out that they had all these debts and what they were from, and said which came first, et cetera, et cetera. And then she made all these, quoted out all these statistics about the amount of people who are in debt and what the debts were, and then this time. She tells Roy, "Did you know that a majority of the prison population is in some kind of debt, has some kind of debt problem?" She starts off it was the same thing, and she said, first she said that she knew all these judges, and I wasn't sure exactly what she said. She knew them, she controlled them,
because this is how she talks the whole season.
and she.
Hey, Safi. I'm Jennifer Dayton Lee, and this is how I'm going to talk the whole season.
He was never going to be able to
Right.
convince any judge that
Right.
to let him ever get out.
Right, you thought that you were going to go up against me, right? Well, I came up with this plan against you, and I'm going to make it so that you have a bad time in prison, because I'm Moraine. I'm a girl boss.
So anyway,
This is how I sounded the whole season, and everybody took me seriously. I'm just a girl boss queen, yeah.
so anyway, she says the thing about most of the prisoners are in debt, and she's taken away. I don't know, a lot of the people around there.
She canceled every single prisoner's debt.
Right, all
around
him. And so that they would make his life as miserable as he made Dorothy's.
Which is
she
really
didn't
bizarre.
Say anything about Danish either. I was a little surprised about that because I know
she didn't say, this is for
devastated.
Danish. She didn't even say that. She just said,
I want to make your life miserable. This is my daughter's life miserable. I'm a girl boss.
Okay,
You're a
Marco,
man.
that's enough
Get
now.
me.
No.
She was like, I really didn't contribute much to this season, if you think about it, except for being a girl boss.
So,
Red
and
Safi?
then she gave him a pack of cigarettes, brand new. And she said, maybe you can use this to negotiate your way out of a problem.
and what's really funny is the fact that, like, this character, you think about all the seasons past in this series. You think about season 1. Every character who did something bad got some kind of comeuppance. You think about season 2. Every single character got some kind of comeuppance. Even people who you thought they were good characters, like Kirsten Dunst, she didn't do anything wrong. She did a good thing the whole season. She was killing off those bad guys. And she was put in prison forever. And she lost her husband as well. She got a terrible ending. And, even the Indian guy, I don't really know much about his character, because, like, they ruined that, in the finale. I mean, he just kind of got to walk off, but, like, he still got some kind of comeuppance. And then season 3, you think every single character in that season got some kind of comeuppance. Even in season 4, the worst season of the show, every single character who did something wrong, did something bad, got their comeuppance. And yet, when you go to Fargo season 5, for some reason, you have a laundry list of characters who didn't get any kind of retribution or any kind of comeuppance at all.
Okay, well, we need to talk about the very last part.
Well, are we done with that whole thing yet?
Yeah, I think we are. She made Indira leave the room before she told him about the prisoners.
Indira,
she said she had principles.
Indira is now Lorraine's bitch. And she probably does other things for her, too.
Oh, Marco, for heaven's sake.
Well, she's her bitch, Safi. Her character is worthless.
Okay, you stop now, would ya?
What is she? What was that character? What is an Indira? Is anyone actually even called an Indira?
Okay, let's move on. Okay, so anyway, after that cemetery scene with Indira and Dorothy and her daughter,
there is 30 minutes left at this point.
they go home.
And you're wondering what is going to happen with this time that they wasted. What is going to happen? Oh. Munch is going to come back. Nobody's looking for him, apparently.
Oh.
And we're going to do this long sequence, which really felt to me like, I know that I will admit that this sequence was the only good thing of the whole episode.
It was very tense. And you did not know what was going to happen.
It was really good.
Blow them all away.
I felt like if you had completely rewritten the first part of the episode, then that whole sequence with Munch would have been perfect, and it would have fit in, and it would have been a great ending. But instead, you have this whole first half of the episode where I think it might be the worst finale in the Fargo history because it's so disappointing. None of the other finales were as disappointing as this. You know, season 1, even though it was a bad finale, it had great payoffs, and it was a lot better than this. Season 2, it did pay everything off for the most part, and Season 3 paid off everything. Season 4 did. This is the only season of the show where they did not pay anything off, and they basically just said, fuck you to the audience. So what happens, Safi, with Munch and Dorothy?
Dorothy and her daughter come home, and they hear her husband talking, and he is entertaining a guest. And guess who the guest is? Munch. And Dorothy is totally concerned because she's like, why is this guy here? So Wayne is like, he did an interview, the actor. He said his father was I can't remember what he said he did, but he didn't like confrontations, so he just pretend like everything was all right. And he said he tried to channel his father's, attitude. And so Wayne is just saying, oh, he's come to see you. And guess what Munch is doing there? He's there to collect his debt. And what's that?
He's there to kill her.
Yeah, he's there to kill her. Or maybe them too.
The thing that I thought, though, that what I was reminded of was I was reminded of season 3, probably one of the worst parts of that season, where Emmett, after he had that amazing character arc, and he defeated the bad guys and everything, and he got away. He's at home like a year later, and he goes into the kitchen to get something, and then he is immediately assassinated by a goon of the bad guy, and that's what it reminded me of. So it was kind of like they were subverting themselves, and so that's what I think of. Like, it's kind of queer too, the way that like they're so up their own asses that when they're writing these original stories, they're thinking, how can we subvert ourselves? Like, they're not just concerned about subverting audience expectations. They want to subvert themselves. Like, oh, today, maybe I will actually wipe myself when I go to the bathroom on the toilet. Or maybe I won't. Won't that be very interesting? That's what these writers basically do. They're like, oh, what if today I brush my teeth? Or what if I don't? Wouldn't that be kind of interesting? Right, Safi?
Okay, Marco, you're just going on and on.
What do you mean? I'm reviewing the episode. What are you doing? Sitting there with a pouty face like you're in a middle school playground?
Just listening to you. But I'm glad you brought up that other season.
Well, didn't that remind you of that? Because it was like the same type of thing where you think that this character has gotten away with everything, which, why is this one of the only characters in the whole show who doesn't get any kind of comeuppance. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Well, Munch doesn't either. And Munch is back. And I will admit, though, this was the best part of the episode. I was like, how is this so good after all that happened before this was so bad?
Well, so you have Dot, and she knows why he's there, I think. He said he was there to collect a debt, but she knows what that means. And did they hear that, or were they out of the room? Her husband and daughter.
I can't remember,
Because
but
there was a time where she sent them out of the room, and he came back. He gave him an orange soda, and he just
that was really
at it.
funny.
Because he goes into this big explanation about his past, and it's almost like he's a figure that's been kept alive since the medieval times.
He was. So apparently his character is actually the supernatural element of this season.
Yeah.
He is a character who's been alive for over hundreds of years, which I thought, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Why didn't they use him more, and why didn't they do more with that? Like, that is very cool. And so, like, this whole last part of the finale was really, really good. It was very intense. It was very well written. I really loved watching them talk to each other, Dorothy and Munch, because they have such a great chemistry together, which is what I told Safi the last two videos. I said, wouldn't it be nice to have them work together, have them talk to each other?
Well, this wasn't
and
working
I was right.
together. This was working it out.
But they were working together to make biscuits, and they were having chili like we are.
Yeah, maybe I should make biscuits to go with it in
I don't-
honor of Fargo.
I don't like biscuits with chili, though.
I know,
like,
we don't eat biscuits
I-
with chili. That must be a Minnesota thing.
Yeah.
because we have crackers
yeah.
with chili. So I thought about it, though, and they were different biscuits than what I would do anyway. But first, though, she doesn't want to alarm her daughter and husband. So she's just talking calmly, and he tells all this story, you know, how he prophesizes. I don't know if that's the correct word. He, the way he talks, the way he explains things, it's different from anybody else. And of course, why? Because he's from the medieval times, like the 1500s. And so anyway, she sends her husband and daughter out of the room to set the table because they're going to have chili, but they're going to make. She
said also that it's getting close to dinner time, so you can either wash your hands and help us, or you can leave. And he's just sitting here like, what the fuck?
And so he washes his hands. They show him, and then they go into the kitchen.
They make dinner together.
And they make biscuits together.
What I really loved was the fact that he, just really, really weird how they do this, but like, remember that whole flashback in episode 3 that made no sense at all? Well, he like explains it in excruciating detail and makes you completely understand what happened in that flashback. And so you get this explanation for something that happened 7 episodes ago, and it's perfect. It's like, why wasn't the rest of the finale as good as this part?
Yeah, this was the best part. And it was, and then I didn't know what Marco would think about this. I never know with him sometimes.
What do you
Anyway,
mean?
he thinks this is the best part of the episode, which really shocks me. I thought he would think it was the worst.
No.
But she's very smooth and talks just normally to him, and they treats him respectfully. So do her husband, of course, and her daughter. And they act like they're having a dinner guest, and they're friends, and everything is just like it would be normally when he was there to kill her.
And
maybe them.
It was so strange how, like, you had that whole first half, it was so terrible, and then you have this whole sequence, and it was so good. It's very hard to... That's why, like, certain shows, they're very hard to review, like Twin Peaks: The Return had the same type of thing, where all this stuff would happen that was stupid, and then you'd have stuff that was really good that happened, and it's like, how do you even review that? How do you even give it a review? Because I would still say this episode was terrible, but with a caveat of, the first half, I'm going to give it my grade now. We're almost done with talking about that part anyway. I'm going to give it 2 grades because the writers suck. I would give the first half of the episode an F-. I would give the second part, which is just the sequence with Munch and Dorothy, I give that sequence an A+. So, that's what I would give it.
What about your food review?
What?
You're not going to do a food review?
Well, for season 5, this isn't the season 5 review yet.
Okay.
I made that a
Right.
separate video to make it easier.
Okay, well, I just want to talk about the very end. So they kind of do this negotiating thing, but it's the other members of the family don't know what's going on, because they're so normal. And he's like, he just doesn't respond, or he just has this look. And, they're making business together. She goes, okay, now you can do this and you can do that. She's telling him he has to put the buttermilk in, and a cup of buttermilk. So they're buttermilk biscuits. And then honey. And she puts the honey, and he's looking at this. And so anyway, when they sit down at the table, then things got tense. He shoves his bowl of chili away, like he's going to get up and kill everybody or something. And she starts talking about getting rid of the debt by things that are good, that are positive, that are loving, full of love, or something like that. I can't remember exactly. You should watch it and really watch it again to see exactly what she says. And she says, here. And she gives him a biscuit. And she said, have this. And it's almost like if he has that, it will change everything. And the debt will be forgiven.
Yeah.
Because of this biscuit and the love that went into it. And so he takes a biscuit and he breaks out into a broad smile. And everything is going to be okay, but it's... I thought Marco would not like that.
Why?
Because it's weird and goofy, but I mean, he's the supernatural part. There's always a supernatural part. Something odd, like the spaceship.
It was revealed in this episode.
Even in the last season,
they had ghosts.
They had a ghost, and the ghost did things, and but it was very subtle.
Season 1 didn't really have very much. They just had a wolf that would show up as like a symbol of the bad guy, but other than that, they'd have supernatural stuff.
So that's what makes Fargo, and everything else is something else.
Well, what would you grade this episode?
I guess I would give the first half because I don't know how to say it. It's almost like you set up a game board, like Marco was talking about, and then you get these special little cards that let you go to the middle of the board with your game piece, and then you go to the end, and you don't do anything in between.
Yeah.
That's what it was kind of like.
Well,
so
to me,
I give it a C because I still was happy. I wasn't happy about Whip, but for them, and because he did something stupid, he wanted to repay. He felt obligated to Dorothy, and he wanted to go after that guy, and then he'd gone to the gate, and they threatened to kill him, and all that crap. And so he was fed up. And then also in the hospital, his encounters with them, Roy threatened him at the hospital, and all these different situations. And I think he just, I don't know, he got full of himself, not in a bad way, but full of himself, that he just forgot that he should have backup. He shouldn't have gone in there by himself, and that was a bad mistake. And he underestimated him. He underestimated that Roy was a lunatic. He wasn't just a bad person; he was a lunatic.
So you're giving the whole episode a C?
No, the first half I'll give it a C, and the second episode I'll give it an A minus. Because I think that big smile at the end was a little goofy. And, you know, much sure he is. He has this, he's really good. He has this really, like, bad look all the way. And then, you know, you see him push his dish of chili out of the way like he's going to get up and kill them all. And then she manages to calm him completely down and into an opposite emotion, which is appreciation and I see what you're talking about kind of look. And after he takes a bite of the biscuit, like he was talking about eating fleas or something.
Yeah, he said eating fleas off of dead rats.
Yeah, and like I guess eating a biscuit would be a lot better than having fleas off dead rats. And that would put a smile on your face. I wouldn't have a smile on my face if I ate fleas on a dead rat.
What do those even look like? Look, let's see
Little
what
black,
that would look
little
like.
Black bugs.
Black bugs?
Yeah, I've seen them.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
That's right.
Ew.
They're hard to kill. Boy.
Ew.
Hard to kill. We had a little flea problem years and years and years ago. I don't even know how.
Ew, that's what they are.
That's a
Ew.
blown up thing. They're little dots.
Ew.
Like little live dots, and they're hard to catch.
No wonder he's in such a bad mood all the time.
Yeah. So, I don't know if Marco was born yet. We had that problem. Anyway.
Well, I would say, Safi I would say it was like that you had a board game all set up, and then the other person said, "Oh, I'm not going to play anymore," and so that you never play it, never get to play anything. That's what I would compare it to.
I just wish they would have had something more with Gator. I mean, I
or anything.
I don't see how he would have gone to prison. I don't know how that would have worked. I don't know how that. I'm going to look that up actually.
I'll look it up for you.
If you're not with him, just with anybody. If you're blind, how do you? What do they do when you go to prison? How do they set that up? I just don't understand it.
There was one person who was sentenced to solitary confinement without parole.
Solitary confinement. That's it.
How are
Still,
blind people? I guess like they were given support services such as guide dog. I don't understand.
I don't know how that works because you have all those other prisoners.
That's really complicated.
You'd be toast.
For housing,
that was a political.
Housing may be confined to a medical unit or something.
See, that's what I'm saying. And also, you know, the FBI wanted Dorothy because she had a lot of goods on them. But they're also having Gator and him giving up his father, they would at least have something from him too that he'd be able to offer. That's why I said he could have a plea deal.
Here there is someone who is actually blind, and he is speaking for all blind people here. He says, yes, blind people do and should go to jail. Partially blind or totally. We can be thieves or criminals too. Yeah, we can go to prison too.
But how are they accommodated? That's which I just didn't get. So anyway, it was I would say it was an episode we didn't expect. They had shown, you know, little teasers in the
and they
trailer.
made it seem like a lot would happen.
Yes, they did.
They falsely advertised it.
When you see people lined up all along a perimeter of a property with a gun, you know, not little handguns, the big kind of guns.
This episode was an easy home run. It was an easy home run of an episode. And they did, for the second time in a row this season, you know, earlier in the season, too, they had that home invasion where they built it up for the whole third episode, and then it was a big letdown in episode 4. And they did that twice this season, where they disappointed the audience.
Well, Yeah, wouldn't say that home invasion was a complete letdown.
It was a letdown.
Why?
You think it was not a letdown based on what could have happened? Like, I mean, not much happened. It was mostly just Gator and her talking, and then the house sets on fire accidentally. Like, it was a huge letdown.
And Wayne gets electrocuted, and she has to push him off the roof.
And they did
into
this.
The snow.
They did the same thing too, where they built it up for the previous episode, and you don't get to see it until the next episode, and then nothing happens. So, well, Safi.
Okay, well, everybody, I hope you liked this review, although it started out a little contentious and yelly, and
What's yelly?
Yelling.
Is that yellow?
Yellow, and if you want to subscribe to our channel, we welcome you, and we would really like your feedback about this last episode. I am really anxious to hear.
A lot of people just said, I loved it, but I didn't expect it to happen. I still loved it. That's what they say.
Well, and
loved it.
But why do you think, I'm talking to the people who are listening, why do you think they set it up to look like there's going to be this huge fight? And you know, when people have these guns at either side and they get all lined up and they get all super excited, they can go crazy and things can happen without them wanting to happen, but they just get into the moment. Like certain things that happened a couple years ago, things go crazy. And so why would they set it up to do this and then nothing really happens? Because what we saw the father-in-law got killed, Whit got killed.
That's it.
And then Roy got shot.
That's it.
And Gator, he had already been blinded and he was injured, of course, because he would get a big bad infection. They bandaged him up. And he was sitting on the tailgate of a truck waiting to go. And so, what do you think? Why do you think they set it up like it was going to be some major massacre? And how did they avoid that? That was the same way. You don't see that. It just, after he leaves the house, Roy does, and goes to that dugout, we don't hear any more shooting. It just stops. How did that stop? What happened with the militia people? I mean, they have because I think the people who were with Roy when he did that little video, they're dead. Because they went after Dot, remember? And then Munch killed them. So and the father-in-law is kind of like their leader too. He's dead. So, how did they have no leaders, so did they just stop? And so the FBI, they could have said stand down, but we don't see any of that. So, what do you think happened? And why did they set it up to look like something else was going to happen when it didn't? And what did you think about Munch eating a biscuit and then transforming into a human being who lives in 2024?
No, it was 2020.
Oh, 2020, okay. So, let us know, and goodbye, everybody.
Bye.